Dr. Kirk Elliott's with us once again. Absolutely amazing to have these updates week after week. So much going on. I feel like we're in the middle of an ocean and we're just getting pummeled on all sides. One day we're catching a really good wave. The next day, the enemy comes back and starts all kinds of chaos. But it's been interesting ride to say the least. Every day feels like, another gift has been given. Seems like we won on the Canada side. We're winning with the peace side in Ukraine, probably in Russia, and so much more in the headlines. I mean, what are you seeing?
Exactly what you just saw. I mean, this is fascinating. So you've got mainstream media that's like pitching a royal fit about Trump's tariffs, right? And then you've got, I don't know what his title is, the Premier of Ontario, or basically their governor,
Right.
Ford says,
Right.
you know what? We don't like this Trump guy and he's awful for Canada. And how dare he even try to do this? So no, we're not going to remove our tariffs, right? So, or the excess prices or whatever he wanted to call it on the energy products going to Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, right? So it's weird to me to think that when most of their products that they create in Canada are exported to America, hardly anything that we produce is exported to them, right? So the balance of trade is completely off. Same thing with China, same thing with Europe. So whenever they say something like that, it kind of makes me laugh. It's like, oh boy, this is not the dog that you want to go to a fight with, kind of thing. Right. You don't. And so what did Trump do when this communist basically doubled down and said, no, we're not going to back down. Trump is an evil president. So Trump said, okay, fine, we're going to double our tariffs on you. Next day, they stopped them completely, right? It's like okay, I guess the number wasn't big enough, but yeah, they can blow hard all they want to, right? And really, we have the negotiating power because we are such a large consumer engine. Now, this has worked really, really well against Mexico and Canada.
Right.
Time will tell how this is going to go with China.
Okay.
Right? Because China's a little bit different. They are kind of the other big kid in the sandbox.
Right.
And they made an announcement. I don't know which government executive or leader it was in China, but they made an announcement this week that said, if America wants to play this tariff war, this economic war, or any war, we're ready to go. It's like, what? Any war? Are they really egging us on? And how far are they willing to go? And what we found in politics, LT, is something that you and I already know. There's a lot of rhetoric and there's a lot of overblown statements, and they'll never comply with them because they're dealing with the largest consumer engine in the world, and they don't want to lose that. So this is where Trump has all the negotiating power, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, he came in on this headline here we saw. Trump says he's not even looking at the stock market. Tariffs will make the U.S. very strong. He continues to buckle down on tariffs. And I don't know, the other day, because we're traveling, the television happened to be on, and we're watching one of the mainstream media folks, and they're, walking around with some lady that has a wedding going on, and she says, I have to pay so much more for this wedding dress at my wedding because of Trump, and they're trying to make it look like he's just this terrible guy. But he's holding down the fort, and he said, no, but this thing's going to work out.
So I love this headline because I think it has a dual message, in my opinion. You can correct me if you think that I'm wrong, but number one is it means exactly what it says. It's like, he's not looking at the stock market. He's not concerned about any kind of fluctuations because in the end, these tariffs are going to make the U.S. very strong. Exactly what he said. However, what he's not really saying, it's like the Alison Krauss country song. You say it best when you say nothing at all, right? So I think what he's not saying is he's not looking at the stock market. It's like nothing to see here. Don't look at it. It's ugly. And I think that's what he's kind of saying in the dual message is this is really ugly. So don't even look at it. Right. And so what did we see this week? when you look at what the stock market opened up on, or it kind of closed on Friday, you had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, absolute bloodbath.
Yeah.
Right. I think the stock market lost literally $1 trillion of market cap over those days.
Right.
I mean, look at this chart that you've got on the screen. $1 trillion. And this is followed up by the cryptocurrency markets, absolutely in a bloodbath the 4 days prior to that. Right. And so these markets are correcting, and they're correcting hard. Right. So here's where Trump, he's 100% right. And he's not looking at the stock market because he's not concerned about it in the long term or medium term. But I think he's also saying, don't look at it right now. It's going to scare the living poo out of you because I think it's going to go down. But don't be worried about it. I think he's telling us to expect things to go down. And I say that because some of the other things that you had shared with me here, like this video clip, I think this is the detoxes. I did like a liver detox once. I did a kidney detox once because I don't like medicine. I always like to do things naturally. Well, it was awful, right? It was not a pleasant experience, but what did I have to detox from? It wasn't even anything major.
Right.
Like, there's no drinking, no smoking, no drugs. I don't have to detox from that. But I did have to detox from like the most common drug in the world, caffeine, right? So I had this addiction to Mountain Dew. It's like, so just going cold turkey on Mountain Dew of all things for a few days gave me the worst headache, and I was sweating and I was grumpy and detoxes are never pleasant is the key.
Amen.
Right. So we're talking about a detox of public spending. Right, as DOJ starts doing their thing, all these government expenditures are starting to come down. Departments are being shut down. People are being laid off. They're looking at USAID, even though Amy Coney Barrett decided, hey, let's not look at this. Let's just, I mean, crazy, right? But this is the detox he's talking about. So, what happens to people when they detox? Right, like we just said, I got grumpy. Everybody gets kind of grumpy. What's going to happen to society as people are losing their jobs? Now, granted, jobs that shouldn't have existed. However, I still really feel sorry for the people that are getting laid off. They didn't know that working for the government was possibly a useless job. I feel awful for them. I really do, because there's families involved, but it's taxpayer dollars that are paying for it, and it doesn't need to be spent. That's the end reality. So when people are low on money, when they're getting grumpy, when food is more expensive, you have societal unrest. And I think that's what's probably coming. The detox is more than just, hey, look, some people are going to lose their jobs. We're already starting to see the political aftermath of some of these things, like all the Tesla dealers and charging stations, being lit on fire. Right. Because people are just starting to clash with each other.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at this even more so, with Besant talking about the American dream. It's not about access to cheap goods. I mean, he's trying to get into the minds and psyche of all the folks to ensure they understand how this is all going to play out. I just find it interesting. One day after another, we're watching the stock market act up, and then folks are always relying, to me, I think a lot of us have relied on grabbing something super cheap. It ends up in our home, and then what do we do with it? It's like, what kind of life are we living? It's almost like we have to detox from all of our cheap goods that we keep purchasing too.
Well, 1,000% LT. I mean, you nailed it, and I love this article. So what is he saying here? He's not just saying that the American dream isn't about access to cheap goods. What's he really saying, right? Because again, you say it best when you say nothing at all. The untold story is more important than the told one in this case. So he's saying, hey, America, this is my paraphrase of what he's really saying. It's like, you know what? You thought that getting a bunch of cheap stuff from China and growing our economy and having access to cheaper goods was all part of the American dream. Build this conspicuous consumption lifestyle. That's not the American dream. The American dream is actually working hard, and getting a job, creating a life for this generation, for future generations. The American dream is the ability to work without government encumbrances on your life that actually tax you to the grave. What he's saying is we're going to have more expensive goods. This is what he's saying here, because tariffs, going back to the founding fathers' vision for America, having other countries pay for our expenses, that's going to make prices higher. Why? Because these other countries are just going to add the tariff into their price of goods.
Right.
And now things are going to be more expensive. So when you start adding up a bunch of the stories here that we had shared together, and you add this one to the mix, he's not saying that life is going to be pleasant. He's saying get used to higher prices, because the American dream is actually bringing jobs back to America, getting more Americans working, more people buying American goods.
Right.
Then that has this self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's the American dream, not buying cheap junk from China or Indonesia or Malaysia or any other country.
Yeah, is the quote here: American dream is rooted in the concept that any citizen can achieve prosperity, upward mobility, and economic security. For too long, the designers of multilateral trade deals have lost sight of this. Amen to that. And it goes into the working class, right? The U.S. payroll growth totals 151,000 in February, less than expected. And it's, it's just, to me, they use these headlines, especially at CNBC, to kind of make it look like it's not that great when I read the headline. But it's, to me, there's actually great things happening here when they talk about the federal government employment declined by 10,000. Good.
Yeah.
And average hourly earnings actually climbed. So it's interesting how this is continuing to play out for all of us.
Well, it is. And mainstream media is not going to talk about those talking points. They're going to talk about this. And so Besant actually talks about this too, right? And when he said, look, we inherited, this is my paraphrase, right? We inherited a cesspool of an economy. This isn't going to be Trump's economy for 6 months, right? So what did he not say? What's it going to be like for the next 6 months? I think this is a glimpse of it. See, Trump is going to get blamed for these job numbers that were less than expected. However, he's only been in office for 7 weeks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This is the aftermath. This is the hangover effect of the Biden economy. According to, again, I think Besant and Trump both have said that it's the Biden hangover that is the economy that we're living in right now. Now, I might be speaking out of turn because I've never actually had a hangover, but I know people who have, and I've seen it, and it's unpleasant. They get sick, they're puking, they have headaches, they don't come into work. And so this is like part of the detox that Besant was talking about. This isn't going to be a very pleasant, I think, few month stretch, because you're dealing with something that the Biden administration accelerated, but he didn't just accelerate something that he started from scratch.